Thank you. Welcome, panelists Hasid and Nikhil. Good to have you here today. I think over the last year and a half, there has been a lot of discussion around digital journeys, digital transformation. When it started off, especially with people like Satya Nadella talking about the digital transformation getting accelerated because of the pandemic, it set me thinking towards, was that really digital transformation, or was that more of a reaction to what was necessary from a continuity perspective? So what do you think really happened, and do you really call it digital transformation? And it's an open question to you, Hasid and Nikhil.
Yeah, thanks, Arun. This is Hasid. I think just to share my thoughts around that thing. Certainly, I think digital transformation was a journey which every enterprise was to take. Correct. I think they were on the different stages of the transformation journey. What pandemic did was something what IT consultants were not able to do to accelerate that journey. Correct. I think that is the message of the digital technology adoptions. That it's the importance that you need to move faster was not getting across because of the various things. You have change management aspect, you have limitation of investments, you have the other technology constraints which are always there in any large enterprises. Correct. Now this whole thing was squeezed in very short time because of pandemic, that yes, it becomes a survival thing. Correct. If you want to have a safety, you need to have mechanism to connect remotely. Correct. If you want to provide business continuity, that means you need to have the bots which takes over work from you. Correct. So, and if you want working from remotely, you need to have cybersecurity in place. Correct? So all the things came into picture together with a very rapid speed, which led to a situation where you are suddenly with the diverse workforce. You always had a diverse workforce, but this accelerated that you have physical workforce, you have digital workforce, your remote working workforce, your on-premise workforce. You suddenly started realizing there is a potential to take the business continuity through crowdsourcing model.
Nikhil, would you like to jump in?
No, absolutely, Arun. I think it's a pivotal question in today's day and age. And I think Hasid, I just augment Hasid's thought. I think Hasid was saying that how models have really changed in which the industry is basically adapting. We like to joke in Tech Mahindra in some of the cases where we say that COVID has been a kind of chief digital officer for us. It has made us data scientists into virologists and virologists into data scientists as well. I think everybody's on the virus path at the moment. So, we want to find out. But I think, look, what one thing has happened is it has done three major changes. Number one, it has told the IT services or the technology frame of mind as scenario that both practical applied research and fundamental research now is necessary to solve a problem. And I think it's no longer about solutions, but it's also about a continuous prototyping value that you can give to the environment. I think that's the first change that COVID has done. I still remember, and I can account our story. Like last year, we started studying the virus, and today we also have a drug that is filed in patent, which can attack the COVID virus. Now, this has taken us both the values of practical researches as well as applied research, and maybe in some cases, fundamental values in which you can say. The second change that COVID-19 really did for us, and everybody was on a digital path, was can different business models really become viable and are basically applicable in the industry that we see. And, maybe in cases of what we are doing from an IT background to a healthcare, to a robotics background, to an insurance organization, how can these different models be applied seamlessly across the spectrum of what we are seeing? And the third change that this has done has really rapidly boosted the education sector of the country as well. Now, if I look at it from my vantage point, I think not just the urban sector, there is a rural sector that is now brewing with that thought that technology is possible and it is feasible to solve a very localized problem, which can then become a much more global, kind of a solution for something. So I think these three major changes have really pushed that barrier for digital transformation, not just for an organization like us, but also in general for the country, and saying that digital is the path forward, where you take it cloud, you take it AI, you take it any technology. But it seems that the path is now clearer and the approach to that path is clearer. It's just about executing those use cases in a practical life sense. Right? that's what COVID has done.
Yeah, so I understand what you're saying, except when I look at the pervasiveness of the digital transformation, which got accelerated by COVID, I don't think it has been consistent across different organizations or different industries, also for that matter. While there was a lot of noise around edtech, especially because education had to necessarily continue, it definitely gave a lot of the educational startups huge valuations. But on the ground, when you start looking at the behavioral changes that it brought about within the children and everything else that goes with it, there was a lot of, I would say, fatigue that got set in very, very quickly. Having said that, if we, let's say, continue looking at the enterprise segment, and I'm sure across your customers, you would have seen different kinds of journeys that got panned out. Having said that, some of them would have done it very, very well because their IT maturity was much higher compared to some of the organizations who are not necessarily mainstream adopters or early adopters. I don't like the word laggards, but yeah, they do come back sooner or later. What do you think these kind of organizations did for course correction? How did they actually enable their organizations? And it would be great if you can also pick a few examples from the manufacturing space.
Absolutely. I think, as you said, Arun, I think the movement was not democratized at the same speed, correct? I think some enterprises have moved better than somebody else. And I think we can clearly see the trends where the fragmentation of the market is reduced. The more and more larger player who are efficient and our options are becoming more and more profitable. They have taken up the pie from the tail end of the suppliers who are not able to cope up with the kind of changes and kind of investment needed to make this digital transformation. So certainly, it has moved to a less fragmented era. Be it a manufacturing side where the supplier base was very, very fragmented and you have tons of suppliers providing various supply chain ecosystem. Now it's getting, one is of course, diversification has happened geographically on the automobile and those industry because the dependency on one country has been realized that it is a risky strategy, even if it means higher cost. Second is that the smaller players are certainly struggling. SME sectors and the other small companies who are supplier based for the large enterprises, they could not maintain the supply chain more effectively. So one side there is a geographical fragmentations are happening, but there is at the same time from the fragmentations are getting reduced from the smaller player to larger player. That's it's a mix of these things happening, which is worrying from the small sector companies because they don't have appetite to invest such things. I think the government support from various countries would be needed to make sure that they are provided opportunities to scale further their digital investments. But yes, the good part is that geography-wise, the spread is increased and options are increasing. And good enterprises have improved their profitability. Despite the top line might have been compromised, but almost all companies have improved their bottom line. So they have been smart enough to shave off their cost, use this opportunity to at least being more nimble and more operationally agile. I think that has happened, or probably it might be just squeezing the smaller vendors, correct? So it might happen, all combinations of things would happen. But yes, the market cap of the industries has increased in general across the globe. Profitability of all listed companies across the globe has increased. So certainly, I think that that phenomena has happened, and across the industry, be it manufacturing, be it IT, I think the larger players are getting more leverage at the cost of the smaller players.
Yeah, that's a good point you raised, Hasit, and you took away my second question, because the second question was about the pressure on cost, especially with the revenues coming down. But let me probably ask a slightly different question to you, Nikhil.
I'll just augment what Hasit said, Arun. First of all, in the previous question, I think I've also seen, I think Hasit's absolutely bang on when he says that, if there's a balance that is maintained off by looking at what your vendor group was to what you've been producing. I've also seen another phenomena for companies who have actually rided this wave, so as to say. And I see that companies who have actually, or industry that has actually kept a kind of balance between exploration and exploitation has survived. And we also see them as a party to the next piece of growth. Now, typically with my sector, what we do as research and innovation, it's a very, very abused and used term that everybody should do innovation and everybody should actually get into some kind of a different methodology of, of working, so on and so forth. I think what has survived, or what would survive, is can you keep a balance between that part which you can exploit within your organization and what you can explore in terms of use cases. And we've seen quite a few. We've seen manufacturing go through a stage where they are now saying that what we see as the future is also not just the physical facets of what we do, but also the digital twin facet of what we can produce in the future. So, that industry is actually on that path to rise. What we have not seen, obviously for real reasons, has been the retail and the hospitality industry, which COVID really got in. But even then, there are certain MSME players which have actually gotten in and said, Arun, that, look, can we completely move it digital? Do we really need to have a physical space, a sector? And that's basically that shift in thinking towards exploring the new opportunities which companies are. And I think barring the industry standard, what you say, now, if I take all the industry on one plane and I say, anyone who's actually trying to shift the focus and not considering this business model to be once, or as a model that runs only once, is actually not going to survive. I think people who think this as a continuous uptake of a model with that exploration and exploitation balance, which we sometimes call as Mobius ring, are actually the industries that are surviving, and we see them across the board as our customers. Yeah.
Interesting. You raised two interesting points, and I'll come back to the digital twin Nikhil later. But one of the things I saw across industries, across companies, the IT infrastructure, which was always a back end kind of a thing, suddenly became very, very critical. People acknowledge it, people recognize it, and people started looking at, okay, yeah, there is somebody in the background who makes this happen. And interestingly, some of those hidden warriors, as you would call them, have started coming into the fore. Do you think it is important for organizations now to start institutionalizing whatever they did in the last 12 to 18 months to make sure that the future looks much better and there is a better alignment towards what IT is enabling to what the business actually needs? Because reality is nobody's going to go back to the old way of doing business. We are going to live in a hybrid world going forward. The question is, where does the balance lie?
Yeah.
Sid, after you, go ahead, please.
Somebody wants to go? Okay. I think that the striking balance is always a complex in any business, correct? For any two things. And it's a challenging phenomena. I don't think that the people who did out of no choice and people who did from choice, correct? So people have used this as opportunities to choice and make the changes in their enterprises. And there are people who didn't have an option, that's why they did it, correct? I think that are the two extreme thought process which exist in all the companies, correct? And some of them will continue to do what they are doing and what they learned during last 2 years, 1.5 years. Some may think that was tactical move and may go back to the old way of doing kind of thing. And that's where the smarter player will emerge, newer smarter player will emerge, or the existing smarter player will become much more smarter kind of thing. So gap between smarter and the others will keep increasing in this phenomena. The one thing which I think which should change or will smart company will change is that look, IT and digital investment not only as a FT saving, correct? I think that so far the always, be it any AI technology or robotics technologies or any of the industry 4.0 IoT technology, it was seen as, okay, can I save the effort? And then that was the only maths. The business people, IT people, CX of that and CFO world, in this thing, the one side of the equation is investment, other is the people cost. And if they matches, then there is a maths is correct. Otherwise, there is no other maths. But now the relation has happened that the advantage of the zero disruption in their businesses or zero latency business processes or error-free businesses in time value of money is much more than the effort saving or FT saving. Correct? I think those who are able to infuse those companies will sustain their investment and will do better.
Nikhil, do you want to jump in while Hasit?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Arun, I'll just first the answer to your
I
question.
think that
When you
will
said,
take it.
sorry, Hasid, I know you lost it. Arun, the answer to your question, should those heroes be brought out who've actually supported the entire backbone of this infrastructure? My answer is an emphatic yes, absolutely. I think we wouldn't have been able to talk. We wouldn't have been able to get the information that we were getting during this COVID-19 had these warriors not been there. I think to Hasid's point, and just augmenting whatever he had been saying, I think number one is, there has been a shift before as well in the industry to say, look, there's been a lot of infrastructure at the background. There's been a lot of money spent on the assets. Can we make it much more scalable and robust by doing clouds, etc.? And today, the operative word in the entire industry within India or abroad is, let's cloudify everything. Great. I think there's a second operative word that keeps on coming up again, saying, let's automate the entire sector. Can we do DevSecOps? Can we do DevOps and so on and so forth, and push it in a much more balanced way, saying that there's a human value attached to it for an oversight, but there's also a computer or a software value as well. I think all of that is absolutely needed. It's right here. It's right now. And I think we are talking possibly about the past when we talk about this. I think, this has already happened. What we really need to do from an industry point of view today is the next step forward, which we are reluctantly taking. And I think that has to become a kind of a standard going forward. We cannot now survive by just automation or just cloudification. I think we have to survive by intelligent automation that some people have started calling, but even more beyond this, cognitive kind of an automation, which should now become the standard. And when we do that, we have to ensure that there is one thing that we keep in mind. Number one, at the end of the day, you would see a ripple back effect when you say that something that was being done by 5 people, it's now being done by a machine. There is going to be a ripple. People are going to say, look, are there going to be jobs lost? Can I actually look at certain other things? Which is definitely going to be taken in that way as a standard process. But I think one important thing that the industry today in India definitely is missing is the idea of responsible usage of technology, which also needs to be baked in now. So if you talk about standardizing all of this, yes, the standards of cloud and automation were there 10 years back. We don't need to touch them. We need to boost up with cognitive automation, or AI, as we call it, or machine learning, as the right terminology would be, along with a standard of responsible usage of that technology in terms of what we are trying to do, which will enable us in the long run to save EBITDA costs of people involved, and also in terms of pushing the grade of the industry to a higher value. Look, we as an industry always keep saying in India, there has been a big kind of a challenge where we are very good in solving the what and the how. We know it and we can solve it. Sometimes, and a large percentage of times, we actually miss the why of the problem. So maybe this shift and standardization of producing your code and producing your assets to the outside world, or for an organization, if it's automated, we may start thinking about these ideologies as well to solve the customer services better, or maybe solve a customer problem better. Standardization, absolutely needed, but components of standardization may have to change as we go ahead. Sorry, Asit, you may want to add. Sorry.
No, I think in between we had lost, I think so. I think it's...
Yeah, so I think what has definitely happened based on what you are saying and what I've seen in the industry, the earlier measurements have disappeared. There are new measurements that have come into place on how people are looking at technology investments, institutionalizing various changes. How are they preparing for the future? ROI is no longer a discussion that used to be in the past. So, which is a great thing for most organizations, because now they're beginning to realize what an investment actually means in a technology. Having said that, I think one of the interesting challenges that I have been seeing, especially with some organizations, more on the B2B side rather than on the B2C. The B2C, the evolution happened fairly quickly. Almost everyone went into some kind of a marketplace, some kind of a online ability to service customers. But on the B2B side, which was largely dependent on people making connections, doing business with business, there was a bit of a change that took a longer time to happen. And that is where organizations who were struggling with relationships, especially suppliers, especially customers, loyalty as a factor disappeared, especially in industries where there was alternatives available. So a lot of disruption happened to relationships. Where do you think technology can now bring them back together in any way whatsoever? Or how can technology be leveraged and sustain some of those relationships?
I think, as I said, I think the in one end of the spectrum, the loyalty has increased, I would say, to a fragmentation. As I gave the example, the fragmentation is reduced, correct? So the larger player, more efficient players are being trusted more now, kind of thing. Because that earlier the trust and the business continuity was not given the weightage, and thus the opportunity was there for larger set of suppliers. Suddenly, you realize that business continuity aspects and then the trust, brand, and supply chain continuity becomes very more important, and thus the loyalty has been concentrated to few set of players, right? So that loyalty certainly is there, but it is more to, yeah.
I'm saying the big got bigger and the smaller ones got marginal.
Correct. So I think so. No, but there are other kind of things, the digital first organization or startups kind of thing. So one end of the spectrum is that large companies who are agile and nimble and who are able to invest, they are able to make a dent into their growth further. Other is that as an alternate options, enterprises are looking to try out startups also who are digital first organization, correct? So who are digital native. So the opportunities are getting created to extreme end of the spectrum. But the common denomination is technology, correct? So whichever spectrum, whether it's a large, small, or medium, the technology will be the key driver to increase the loyalty. That is becoming more and more clearer, kind of thing. So of course, if larger and the startup is the core are able to attract the loyalty. That's what I would say, and that's how those who continue to invest in technologies ensure that their product qualities are improving, their supply chain is improving, their touch to the customers and customers are real-time basis based on technology. I think those enterprises will continue to have the loyalty with their partners.
Yeah, no, I think I'll just add a few things. I think two points are clear. It's an open-ended question. I don't have a real answer to this as to what technology would do in the future. But I think from principles of it, by looking at what Hasit said, right? So loyalty, trust, I think makes a great segue to actually say what more can you give from technology perspective from a B2B. I think one thing that B2B is realizing now is accountability. Am I accountable for that change? Which I actually give to your customers as well. And I think that's improving with technology because I can now have a verified empirical reason why I am accountable and what makes me accountable in doing that. That's number one. Number two is there safety? If I give you from a B2B perspective, do I create a safe kind of a solution and technology which actually goes and applies to this, or safety in terms of approachability, etc. But the third factor is transparency. Can I be transparent? I think a large part of the enterprise today wants to be transparent to its customers, saying that this is the reason why we did this, barring few exceptions here and there. And technology is trying to make that kind of a segue easier for people to say, the reason why we chose this and not this is because of being transparent in this scenario. And we've been very open saying that this is what is changing. So technology would change that, even though it has not changed over a large facet of time. These are areas, or these are segues or sectors that will make the technology appear. And this all boils down, Arun, as Hasit said, to trust value. Can I trust technology? Am I at that position where, as a B2B enterprise dealing with a service provider, can I trust your technology? And can I establish that same trust within my customer as well? So that's the underlying facet that Hasit said rightly as the trust. But I think these are just small segues which are actually now being produced by technology to their customers, saying this is what we are doing. Right? So that's where we're looking at.
Perfect. So let's switch focus from external to internal. I guess we talked a lot about how technology, how disruption has impacted our ability to do business. What has happened internally within the organization? And I remember for a very, very long time, nobody wanted remote working because every manager felt, if I can't see the person, how do I ensure that they're actually working? And from there, today it's not really an option worth looking at. So what has happened internally? How do you think organizations have been able to embrace, not that too many of them had choices, but people did that. I know of an organization in the US which had some 20,000 employees. The day before the lockdown was announced, they said, everyone take your machines, whatever you have on your desk, take it home and work from there. So suddenly from 11 offices, now they had 20,000 offices for IT to support. And you can imagine the complexity of the problem that comes with that. Any inputs from your side? What have you seen as the change happening internally?
I think this employee safety has become paramount, correct? So I think that is the first thing when this pandemic hit us. I think the first thing came is that how do we make the employees safe? Correct? I think that business continuity will automatically be taken care of once we ensure that employees are safe. I think that the immediately, I don't think anybody thought about the business continuity first. Everybody thought about the employee safety, and that was the right thing to do. Most of the enterprises did, and ensure that the technology was used to ensure that employees are safe. I think once that was taken care, then of course, then there is a thought about how do I ensure the business continuity in the whole program. So I think that employee safety, having an empathetic view to the employees' problem, accepting the noise at such kind of calls are acceptable because people are working. Because today we will accommodate if somebody barges into my room and somebody says something. I think it's a well accepted norm within this thing. So I think that the etiquette norms have changed. What was not acceptable is acceptable. So it's a big change management to all of us, which this pandemic is teaching us. Correct, that we suddenly started talking about that office hours cannot be unlimited kind of thing, which was always people were working very hard, correct? But now it has gone to a level where people have started talking aloud that, okay, should we have mandatory switch off time? So I think it is opening up various spectrum of things which was there, but it was not amplified. Now things are coming in a right color and shape, and unfortunately that's such a crisis as making us being more empathetic to various things, but it is helping. And I think most of the enterprises responded very well to this situation when it comes to the taking care of the employee. I think it's a perfectly right directions, and people are getting mix of the and I think the industry will find its own mix of the remote versus this thing based on the business needs. And I think employees are also very well understand that at point they have to go to office, they have to brainstorm certain things, they have to whiteboarding certain things. So I think the flexibility is coming from both the angle, and I think it is getting towards a new norm, I would say.
I think I'll just, sorry, if I have time, I'll just add, I think trust is a two-way street, Arun. And that somehow COVID gave us the idea to establish that two-way street with our employees. And I can only give examples of what we have done internally when this COVID hit. It's not just, secondly, it was about business continuity. The first thing was, how do you keep your employees safe? And we've all witnessed the second wave in Delhi. We responded within 8 hours to actually make a system ready for our employees to reach out for any help and for the mistrust of information that was going around. And the employees responded not just by calling up that phone number, but also by responding us by saying that I will give you, I'm allocating this much amount of fund, for COVID, so on and so forth. And so trust is a two-way street. Second, we found out that it is a diverse world, and you need that diversity to actually solve a problem today. It cannot be all engineers, it cannot be all artists, and it cannot be all project managers. Now, in the lab that I run, of course, in the R&D sector, I've got an Uber driver who's working with us, who actually joined during these times, and he actually started learning these techniques of technology. But at the same time, I have a near autistic kid who's actually making games for us. Now, we can find talent almost at every space and every point, including, the female group of people or female group of leaders who've actually created a complete hardware software sector for us. So second was that you can find talent almost anywhere, everywhere. And if you give them the space, they will actually produce back that value. And the third was that do we need calls every day to ensure that productivity is ensured? Do we really need to keep check on people at every small little point to make sure that productivity is concerned? I think if you give some kind of a leeway and some kind of a trust factor to an employee saying this is your work, they would respond back in that fashion. I think these three things have completely changed, at least for me, of how we are dealing during these times.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with what you're saying, because people have risen to the challenge. when work invaded their life. Earlier, it was very different. Today, probably in the early days, it was selective. A lot of us used to do it, but it was not pervasive. Today, it's impacted almost every person and their families in ways that were nobody had ever imagined. I think we have run out of time, so probably one last question before we close the discussion. Where do you think this ends? Is there an end game that people need to be working on?
I think the end game is only simple. I would say that let human do only those things which can be uniquely done by humans. Let machine do rest of the things. Of course, this is an aspiration which have to continue to pass. Human will have to figure out newer way of things which are uniquely done by humans, and machine will follow up kind of thing. So it's a catch-up mode. Both keeps running, and there's no end game, I would say. But yes, that principle, we have to let human do only those things which can be uniquely done by humans.
So responsible technology.
Yeah, responsible. This is not the end. This is just
Of
the
course.
beginning.
Great. I think we ran out of time. Thank you very much. It was a great conversation. I wish we had more time. We could have discussed and debated a lot more. Thank you,